Hello again, YouTube. It is your new friend, Ted Filson. I realize now that my first video, being almost an hour long, may be a bit much to digest. So, this is my attempt number one at a Ubisoft quickie, where I try and explain just one key point about the Ubisoft situation. So, this video has one goal to convince you Ubisoft does not have a revenue problem. So, first off, what is revenue? Revenue is sales. So when everybody's talking about this game or that game being a flop, Star Wars, new Assassin's Creed Shadow, previous Assassin's Creed games like Valhalla, the new Far Cry 5, Far Cry 6, when people are talking about how bad these games are and Ubisoft is suffering for its bad decisions and all this sort of stuff, they're implying Ubisoft has a revenue problem because revenue literally just means sales. It's the counting of the dollars or euros in this case that Ubisoft gets in exchange for the video games that it creates. So, if you're watching these videos and you're following the story, it may be fun to latch on to this idea that, yeah, Star Wars Outlaws is so bad, Ubisoft's going down because their games suck and nobody's buying them. And that is you know, taken in a vacuum, might their games suck now? Might their games have lower quality? You can get into that if you want to watch my longer video. But the reality is that they do not really have a revenue problem. Ubisoft has lots of problems, but sales falling through the floor because nobody's buying their games, that's just not one of their problems. That is just not what's going on. So, if you take a look at this slide, we've got only two lines on this slide. One is the stock price. This is the pink line. You'll see back in 2003, it was pretty low. It sort of spiked in '06, then the whole market crash, if anybody remembers, what was going on in 2008. Then they went back down 2011, they sort of turned around, gradually grew up till around the $80 range in 20, let's call it 16. And then there was some volatility there, so moving up and down, but it stayed high. And then in 2020, the stock price basically fell off a cliff. From 2020 till today, the stock has fallen almost, consistently, right? Every day over day keeps falling. It's a catastrophic dip. Okay. So the green line is revenue, green line is sales. So if it were the case that the stock is down because nobody's buying Ubisoft video games and the Ubisoft video games suck, if that were the case, you would expect the green line to go to fall. Well, first off, to fall at all, because right now it's certainly a little volatile, but it's still growing on average. But you would expect it to actually fall before before the stock price dip, right? So that's not what we see here. We see stock hit an all-time high in 2020, and revenue was still growing gradually, and then the stock price fell off a cliff while revenue then following the beginning of the stock dip, revenue actually increased and then stepped down a little bit to about $2 billion. That's that line that touches the far right tip of the green line. $2 billion in revenue. Well, $2 billion in revenue, that's how much revenue they had in 2017 when the stock was still at more or less an all-time high. Same for 2018, same for 2019. Okay? So revenue again has fallen slightly since their absolute peak in 2021, but it's still at more or less all-time highs. And yet the stock price is down. So that's pretty much it. That's the key point here. The sales have maybe stagnated a little bit, but not really. And the stock price fell well before the sales fall. And the stock price is completely out of whack. If these things grew together, if revenue was the key driver of the stock price, That's what you would see. You would see the green line moving kind of lumpily up and to the right, and you would see the stock price moving kind of lumpily to the right. And it's just not happening here. The stock price fell off a cliff in 2020, 2019. All the while, revenue has maybe become more volatile, meaning the degree to which it changes has increased a little bit, but it hasn't collapsed. So that's it. That's the point of this video. Every time you hear a YouTuber or you read an article from PC Gamer or IGN or Kotaku, if I don't even know if they still exist, that's saying, "Oh, Ubisoft sales problem, blah blah blah. None of their games are selling, this and that," hanging on to every single word about the AC Shadows numbers, you remember to yourself, well, sales are important. They certainly need revenue, but that is not what's causing all of the investors to pull their money out of Ubisoft. The truth is, it has a lot more to do with expense growth and debt management and cash management. But that is for either another Ubisoft quickie or you can take a look at my longer video. So that's it for today. This is a quickie. It is revenue and stock price compared over time. And you can see very clearly this is straightforward public data, very weak correlation. Stock price is moving completely independently of sales. And while Ubisoft, maybe they should have more sales, right? Maybe that's part of the problem, but it is not a collapse in sales. The fact that their video games aren't selling is not the problem. They're at basically all time high revenue, and their stock is at basically all time low. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon.